Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it looks like we got a pretty interesting week to bring things back to normal, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So I think we might be out of the woods when it comes to major album bombs, barring some strange surprise for 2023. So the Hot 100 isn't so much resetting to equilibrium as it is prepping for the glut of Christmas music, because not enough of those songs have been forced into recurrence yet. Now granted, 1989 Taylor's version didn't really go away in full, and it leaves the Hot 100 in a bit of a weird space, but I guess I'll take what I can get with this. And that starts off with our top 10, where replacing herself at the top, again, we got Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift at number 1. At this point, it's the radio margin. Despite it being November, it somehow still has legs at the top spot on airplay, and streaming is no slouch, which places Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat at number 2, effectively losing on the margins. It's winning on streaming, but it can't close the radio or sales gap. Then right behind her, we got Is It Over Now by Taylor Swift at number 3. Chalk this one up to residual streaming, where it's just ruling it there, and holds over Snooze by SZA at number 4, which looks like it's finally hit its radio peak. Then we got our first new arrival at number 5, Standing Next to You by Jungkook, driven off his album, which is translated to big sales and okay streaming overall. It's probably not going to last up here, and we'll talk about the quality later on, but still interesting to see, especially nudging over I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves at number 6, where the streaming traction just will not break. God, that's just so very revealing of Nashville that they're still not even attempting to get behind this. But now we got our second new arrival in the top 10, arguably the biggest anomaly, at number 7, Now and Then by the Beatles. Now again, we'll get more into the song later on, but it's here pretty much based on sales. The radio isn't really moving on it, and streaming is only lukewarm at best. It's already predicted to drop off very sharply as a bit of a novelty if we're being honest. Now compare this to Fast Car by Luke Combs at number 8, where it looks like the radio is finally running out of gas even as it saw a modest streaming revival. And that takes us to Morgan Wallen's got 2 songs bringing up the end of the top 10. Thinking About Me at number 9, courtesy of radio hitting a peak, and Last Night at number 10, which is on its outs with radio but still has a ton of streaming. Oh joy. Now this takes us neatly to our losers and our dropouts, where I wouldn't really say there's any dropouts worth mentioning beyond the extraneous Taylor Swift album cuts, and Taylor Swift pretty much comprises all of our losers here as well. Now That We Don't Talk at 12, Say Don't Go at 26, Slut at 31, Style at 45, Bad Blood at 47, Suburban Legends at 50, Blank Space at 59, Wildest Dreams at 72, Out of the Woods at 73, Welcome to New York at 77, Shake It Off at 83, All You Had to Do Was Stay at 89, New Romantics at 92, and Clean at 96. I'm frankly shocked that that last one managed to hold on for a second week. Neat. But the big story here are the returns and the gains, and I'm going to go through both at length because we don't really have that many new arrivals, and it would make some degree of sense to get an idea where things are at least for now. So in the returns, it's a split between Jungkook bringing back 7 with Lotto to 49, and a few straggling country songs at the very bottom of the Hot 100, with Save Me the Trouble by Dan O'Shea at 95, But I Got a Beer in My Hand by Luke Bryan at 98, and oh look, Sarah's Place by Zach Bryan featuring Noah Khan at 100. Now in our gains, Jungkook also saw an album pickup for 3D with Jack Harlow at 58, and the one debut that actually saw gains from last week was World on Fire by Nate Smith up to 48. But before we get into all the rebounds, let's consider the songs that were stable but managed to make up ground, like Greedy by Tate McRae up to 11, or 500 Pounds by Lil Tecca at 55, or The Painter by Cody Johnson at 61, or Que Onda by Cali24, Chino Pacas, and Fuerza Regida at 78, or Standing Room Only by Tim McGraw at 86. But there is a lot that follows all that, so let's knock off a couple acts that saw multiple gains, like Miley with Flowers at 23 and Used to Be Young at 25, or Noah Khan with Dial Drunk with Post Malone at 35 and Stick Season at 37, or Olivia Rodrigo with Bad Idea Right at 41, or Get 'Em Back at 60, or Jelly Roll with Need a Favor at 15, Save Me with Lainey Wilson at 22, 42, and Wild Ones with Jesse Murph at 42. Next, let's run through all the rest of the country. Burn It Down by Parker McCollum at 80, Hey Driver by Zach Bryan and the War and Treaty at 76, Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony at 71, Can't Have Mine by Dylan Scott at 67, Try That in a Small Town by Jason Aldean at 52, Pretty Little Poison by Warren Ziders at 46, and hey look, White Horse by Chris Stapleton at 29, which should see an even bigger boost with the album impacting next week. And now, the rest. Bongos by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion at 64, Great Gatsby by Rod Wave at 62, Strangers by Kenya Grace at 53, On My Mama by Victoria Monet at 51, Lose Control by Teddy Swims at 43, I Know by Travis Scott at 40, and Daylight by David Kushner at 36. And finishing it off, What It Is Block Boy by Doechii and Kodak Black at 34, My Love Mine All Mine by Mitski at 33, Good Good by Usher, Summer Walker, and 21 Savage at 30, What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish at 28, Lil Boo Thing by Paul Russell at 27, Agora Hills by Doja Cat at 20, Water by Tyla at 18, Dance the Night by Dua Lipa at 16, Rich Baby Daddy by Drake featuring Sexy Red and SZA at 14, and Fuck You Mean by Gunna at 13. So alright, now on to a rather diverse list of new arrivals. Number 99, We Don't Fight Anymore by Carly Pearce featuring Chris Stapleton.
Burn the whole thing down, but boy, what for? 'Cause we don't even fight anymore.
You know, I was thinking the other day when we would start getting a new Carly Pearce album, and what do you know? She's got an opportunistically timed single with Chris Stapleton right as his new album rolls around. That's very convenient. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised that we got a pretty damn high quality single out of the collab. Pearce and Stapleton have really solid vocal chemistry against the aching strings, the gentle percussion, and the twang of the dobro as they sing about the sort of dead relationship where it's not even worth fighting at this point. Both seem to be openly cheating on each other in some capacity, and while you get the feeling that both of them would love to actually open up and say something and maybe even reconcile, the gap created by history is just too wide, where honestly you would expect a breakup at the very end. They just can't even muster the energy to do that, and that leaves all sorts of things unsaid. Honestly, if I've got two nitpicks, it'd be that the song feels a bit overstated in the vocal delivery. Both of them can really sing, they can sell that heartbreak, but maybe underplaying it could have worked better. And you know what, maybe the composition could have used a little bit more texture, feel a little less tasteful. But again, I'm nitpicking. This is a great song. Glad to see Carly Pearce finally back. Number 97, Bleed by Kid LAROI.
Burning in my brain and I'm stuck in yesterday. For me it's still the same, tell me how did your heart been so easy? Mine still bleeds.
Why do I get the feeling that the Kid LAROI is just not getting the traction to have a more sustained career? First Time came out nearly a year ago, and while he put out an album recently that was stuffed with guest features, that decently sized single 2 weeks ago, even that is barely clinging on thanks to whatever Scooter Braun can throw behind it, and I'm just not seeing the buzz compared to everything around Fuck Love a couple of years ago. And with this, well, I get why the traction might be fading, because I do not care for this at all. For one, we're dealing with another post-breakup whinging session where she's moved on rather quickly, and off the bridge, she just didn't seem nearly as invested as he was. And while he's gotten marginally better at selling it in his delivery, the production does Kid LAROI no favors as the warmer acoustics get even more compressed and runny as the drums ramp up for the final hook. Honestly, by the end, they just sound filmy and gross amidst all the warbling textures around him. But again, the larger issue is that he sounds so damn basic and clingy that even playing to more adolescent standards, it's not appealing. So yeah, I don't like this. Next, number 56, Can't Catch Me Now by Olivia Rodrigo.
Steps on the ground. You see my face in every place, but you can't catch me now.
So this is the one cut from the new Hunger Games spin-off soundtrack that is reportedly built more like a pop song, which to me is very funny because apparently the rest of the soundtrack is all getting written and produced by Dave Cobb, and it's stacked to the gills with indie country acts, which funnily enough, if you remember the old Hunger Games soundtracks, it's not that far afield. But okay, fine, you need Olivia Rodrigo to break the mainstream crossover, and yet the ironic thing is that while Dan Nigro is producing, this song is predominantly in line with the country folk likely to be on the rest of the album, from the gentle creaking acoustics to the touches of strings to the Boy Genius-esque vocal overdubs to the remarkably dark subject matter, singing from the perspective of a revolutionary ghost haunting and then taunting her adversary, who might have won in the moment, but it's a bit of a hollow victory. And this is where Olivia Rodrigo's skill as an actress really translates well into her singing. She can sell that darker theatricality and make the track feel more cinematic, a big plus there. So yeah, this is really damn good too. I've never been a big fan of the Hunger Games franchise in any form, but this was really well done. Check it out. Number 44, Harley Quinn by Fuerza, Regida, and Marshmello.
Patrullando los monstruos, bien tapados los rostros, peligroso, tu culo redondo.
Oh Lovely, one of the acts I like the least in the regional Mexican scene, teaming up with one of the worst EDM producers of the past several years. So okay, listening through this collab, which has already divided some fans of that regional Mexican sound, I don't hate this the way I thought I would. Look, my primary issue with a lot of this sound is how underproduced it can be with the rickety acoustics and the farty horns, and that is still true here, but there's a little bit more of a bass gallop built in, and the vocals feel a little bit better mic'd. That two-step drop that Marshmello adds, it's not overpowering in the way it could be, and the scant polish he adds, it is still polish. Now granted, then you translate the content, which is all about the frontman trying to get this girl to cheat amidst a lot of sleaze and gangland posturing, which feels even more awkward with this production palette and Marshmello. But as a whole, look, it's very obvious that Marshmello is trying to piggyback onto this sound, and it got roughly up to the level of competent mediocrity. It could have been that much worse. I'll stay there. Number 32, Cobra by Megan Thee Stallion.
But this ain't domestic, ayy. Think it's going down, now he's stand corrected, ayy. This pussy depressed, I'm about to stress him, ayy.
So there are a couple layers to this conversation. The first being that this is Megan's first release on her own independent imprint and was reportedly much darker than a lot of her crossover material, specifically focusing on the loss of her parents when she was younger, depression, alcohol abuse, and a certain ex-partner for whom she's got a lot of venom for good reason. And you know, this darkness is not that out of character. Meg's material's always had a harsher, nastier edge if you read between the lines, and that feels very obvious out of the gate with that jagged riff underscoring the trap percussion and faded flute, even the solo later in the song. And while I'm not always sure her delivery is the best fit for this content, I'll also argue the bluntness of the writing translates her sentiments effectively enough. Of course, the other side of the story is the rock remix with Spirit Box of all people, where the riff gets even more snarled, the trap percussion gets some live drum support, and Courtney LaPlante adds her sung and screamed vocals to extend the hook and flesh out that Cobra metaphor, and that's a really nice touch. So I'm kinda split on whether or not I think the rock remix is better than the original. Given the subject matter, I think Megan might just be stronger on her own. It's a more emotionally effective frame. But either way, this is the sort of promising swerve I have been looking for Megan to make. It's a really great song to do so. Strong stuff. Check it out. Number 7, Now and Then by the Beatles.
I miss you.
You know, it's funny, most weeks out of the year, the song by the goddamn Beatles would probably run away with this, especially one tagged as the last Beatles song, written by the late John Lennon and originally part of a 1977 demo, produced now by Paul McCartney, featuring Ringo Starr on drums, the late George Harrison on guitar, and this is where things get sketchy. Apparently this track was originally intended for the anthology album, but 2 days into the original session work, it was halted when George called it, and I quote, fucking rubbish, which is why they never finished it properly. And yet, after the original writer and the member who hated it died years ago, we're getting a finished version with them on it, and we're not keeping the same energy we reserve for other fragmented posthumous releases, especially ones like this that are patched together and have plenty of rough edges to expose it. Because, come on, once you step away from the nostalgia, oh, it's a Beatles song, this isn't good. Yeah, the guitar work has a pleasant mid-90s melancholic vibe, but I don't love the electric guitar or strings blended in, and the vocal harmonies are really rough, mostly because John's recorded vocals have been very weirdly processed. And I don't love the lyrics either. The song feels underwritten, a hazy draft that's getting propped up on wistful longing for bandmates long gone. I'm just not wowed by this. Call it heresy all you want, but if Paul is using this to finally put a stamp on the ending of The Beatles, yeah, it comes across in poor taste. I don't like this at all. And finally, number 5, Standing Next to You by Jungkook.
You know it's deeper than the rain, it's deeper than the pain. When it's deep like DNA, something they can take away. Hey, tick off.
I am a little bit surprised we didn't get more new Jungkook songs that charted beyond this one, but I did hear this was the best of the album, and 3D was a really nice surprise a couple weeks back, so I actually had some hope for this, and looks like someone really wanted to pivot towards new disco with that fat snarled bass and the fizzy percussion and the hazy jam courtesy of Watt's production that honestly feels really oversaturated and trying to blur together the strings and the more robust horns. This is a song that feels like it should be way tighter than it actually is, not helped by Jungkook sounding like he's trying to fight his way over this mix without the punch that he needs. What's also kind of obvious is that I can tell this song really wants to crib notes from Uptown Funk, but the song here is just bereft of any broader flair in the lyrics or Jungkook's performance. For a song that's all about you and me against the world, it sounds more like Jungkook needs help himself to get out from under the weight of all this production. And that's bizarre because on 3D he proved he had that tighter swagger, but that song also had a more minimalist groove that didn't try to overwhelm everything. Here it just does not complement Jungkook as well as it probably should, and that is kind of disappointing. I mean, it's not bad per se, but if it falls off, I'm not gonna complain. It's not that good. But that was our week. Honestly, pretty strong, all things considered. There's a number of great songs. I actually have a tie for the top spot going between Cobra by Megan Thee Stallion and We Don't Fight Anymore by Carly, Pearce, and Chris Stapleton. And Olivia Rodrigo is getting the honorable mention for Can't Catch Me Now. Now for the worst, okay, yes, Kid LAROI is easily getting this for Bleed, but dishonorable mention, yeah, you know what? Now and Then by the Beatles. I don't like to say it, but I'm also not beholden to nostalgia to compensate for a painfully weak song that if it came from anyone else, this would not get a pass. So let's see how much of it lasts going into next week. Stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.